Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Fauzan bin Tugiman and I will be presenting about static and dynamic analysis of moisturized glass epoxy composite, which is my proposal for FIP1. And my supervisor names is Abdul Hakim Abdullah. These are the content of proposal that I will be present about, which is introduction, problem statement, objective, literature review, methodology, and expected result. For the introduction, composites have been described as the most innovative and discerning material available in this century due to their adaptability to various constraints. Currently, fiber reforms the composite are becoming more important and demand for lightweight material with high strength for specific application is growing increasingly on the market. Height-specific stiffness and height-specific strength make the composite a suitable alternative for these critical weight applications. Composite will not be outstanding without a metric that plays a critical role in fiber-reinforced composites such as epoxy. Epoxy resins are commonly used as adhesive in the automotive, aerospace, and industrial industry due to their excellent thermal and mechanical properties. Apart from this, the epoxy also protects the surface the fiber from mechanical damage, serve as a shield against the adverse environment and transfer the load to the fiber. There are several problems that minor in doing this experiment. Epoxy composites absorb water which affect the physical and mechanical properties. It is generally reported that mechanical properties of composite material are influenced by material aging, which is often accompanied by moisturized absorption. This can cause lamination and invisible harm. For example, when any object unluckily drops on the composite material, it does not cause visible damage but can change the performance of the composite material. Composite material is readily exposed to damp environment. The absorption of water in the composite will have an effect on the mechanical properties of the composite and will also reduce the performance of the composite. The composite will be soaked into distilled water with different period of time and will be evaluate the amount of liquid absorption. The amount of the absorption will be determine the effect of the energy performance in the composite. There are several objectives in doing this experiment. The first objective that I found is to fabricate composite with moisture content subject to 1 day, 10 days, and 40 days of submerge. The second one is to determine the mechanical properties of glass opposite composite by using dynamic mechanical analysis (DAS). And the third one is to determine the shear strength of glass epoxy composite by using interlaminar shear strength test. And the final one is to determine the flexural strength of the glass epoxy composite by using bending test. For the literature review, we are need to find a journal about the title that we are choose and do some research toward it to ensure that we understand with the title given. The first one that I found in the research for my research is composite material. The formation of two or more hard material with significantly different physical or chemical properties when combined produce a material with different characteristics compared to the basic element. Composite materials are widely used for bridge, houses, and structures such as ship hulls, raised car frames, toilets, storage tanks, marble sinks, and countertops. The greatest disadvantage of composite material for manufacturers of components and aircraft is their higher initial cost compared to metals. The higher cost is mainly due to the quality of the fibers and the complex process needed to be produce the finished material. A wonderful material with a lightweight, high strength to weight ratio and standard properties have gone a long way to replace traditional materials such as metal, glass, and plastic. The next one is about epoxy. What is epoxy? Epoxy is the main material for coating, adhesive, corrosion protectors, and electronic encapsulation. Epoxy-based coating in automotive applications present rust and corrosion on vehicle and metal components. Recently, the use of filler in composite has been commonly used as certain forms of fillers improve composite properties compared to inorganic fillers such as black carbon and titanium dioxide. Natural fillers have the advantage of lower weight and lower price. What are we gonna do for the composite in this experiment? What are we doing is we need to soak the composite, the specimen, into the distilled water. So, in my research, I found the influence of moisture content on composites. Composite materials are always exposed to moist and wet environment during their surface life. It is important to study the effect and moisture on composite material. Moisture absorption test is a suitable test to investigate the effect of the moisture on the composite. In this project, the specimen will be submerged into distilled water with room temperature for 1 day, 10 days, and 40 days. The effect of the composite with different moisture content can characterize the interlaminar fracture toughness as the ratio and moisture content level. The aspect can be known is that the same type of composite will have a different effect on moisture absorption. There are three types of tests that we are gonna do in this experiment, which is dynamic mechanical thermal analysis, which is DMA, interlaminar shear stress, which is ILSS, and flexural test, which is bending test. For dynamic mechanical thermal analysis, which better known as DMA, is a technique where a minor deformation is applied to a sample in a spherical manner. This helps the material to react to stress, temperature, frequency, and other values can be studied. Storage modulus or dynamic modulus is usually linked to the Young modulus. This is also correlated with the stiffness of substance and defines how stiff or flimsy a sample is. Loss modulus or dynamic loss modulus is a viscous reaction of material, and it is considered to be material propensity to dissipate the energy applied to it. Tan delta is expression as dimensionless number, and it is considered to be a mechanical damping factor known as the ratio of loss and storage modulus. A high tan delta value indicate a material with a high non-elastic strain component, while a low value indicate a lower elasticity. These are the graph that have relationship between loss modulus, storage modulus, and tan delta, which is damping force. The next test that I will present to you about interlaminar shear strength, which is ILS. Manufacturing method of composite production restrict the thickness of the fibers in order to maintain the transverse load which affect the ILS properties of the composite. Interlaminar shear stress can be caused by a number of factors, one of which is the material properties between the layers. The interlaminar shear stress plays an important role in the failure strength of composite laminate. The interface can be sheared apart in the corresponding direction. When the transverse shear load experienced by the epoxy composite exceeds the interlaminar shear strength, Delamination failure occurs between the layers of the reinforced fiber. In order to measure the ILSS of the composite directly, a pattern of pure shear stress would be generated between the laminate to induce interlaminar shear failure. For the flexural properties, flexure tests are generally used to determine the flexural modulus or flexural strength of a material. A flexure test is more affordable than a tensile test, and tensile results are slightly different. The material is laid horizontally over two points of contact, and then a force is applied on the top of the material, which is like bending test. If the failure involves compressive stress, micro-buckling or shear splitting, the failure stress is lower. The most common aim of the flexure test is to assess flexural strength and flexural modulus. Flexural modulus is determined from the stress load versus the strain deflect curve. These two values can be used to test the ability of the sample material to withstand flexural or bending forces. And these are the example of the graph in flexural strength, strain, and stress. These are the project flow of methodology of my research or my proposal. The first one that I do is literature review. In the preliminary research, findings were made through a literature review by reference to an online article and a journal for the research of glass fiber, epoxy composite, DMA, ILSS, and flexural properties. The second one is identify the object, problem statement, and scope of the project. At the same time, with the research of in this journal, the project scope, the problem statement, and the object were identified through the literature review. This finding will make it to understand on how the process flow and what are the objective of the analysis is about. The overview in understanding the experiment will observe from the literature review. The next one is specimen preparation. How we make the specimen. The specimen preparation for the experiment are fiberglass that will reforms with the opposite that will soak with the opposite to become epoxy composite that are literally high in flexural strength. The specimen will submerge into distilled water for a certain period, which is 1 day, 10 days, and 40 days with room temperature. The next process is specimen testing. The specimen that have soaked into distilled water, including the specimen that are not soaked into distilled water, will be tested in three different tests, which is DMA, ILS, ILSS, and flexural properties. These tests have different observation and analysis for dynamic properties of the epoxy composite. The final one is data collection and analysis. The data will be collected from the three different test analysis of the epoxy composite. DMA will be determine the dynamic properties of the epoxy composite in storage modulus, loss modulus, and damping ratio, which is the tan delta. While ILSS will be determine the shear strength of the composite, and for the bending test will determine the flexural properties of the epoxy composite. This data will be collected and analyzed with the report writing. By the end of this study, the expected result will occur as the prediction and conclusion for the research in our study. The predict outcome of the fiberglass that are reinforced with the epoxy to become epoxy composite has more strength due to its stiffness even though the epoxy composite are submerged into distilled water. But the epoxy composite uh, but the epoxy composite will have low in strength when they soak into water with a long time. The epoxy composite also will have high in strength than raw fiberglass. The epoxy composite that soak into distilled water will have high in moisture content and thus have low in shear strength. This is the example of the graph, which is when the specimen that we soak into the distilled water have a long time to soak, then the shear strength of the specimen will have low. So that's all from me with my presentation of my proposal in FYP1. I have left my email and phone number in this final slide. Any question you can just direct email me or call me with this number. And you also can WhatsApp me through this number. Thank you for your time.